Doors of sharing, durian ASEAN.
Hi, welcome back again. This is Arlene in Durian ASEAN. So we still have our guest host here, Teck, and we also have someone on the phone, Mr. S. Muthu. Hello, S. Muthu?
Yeah, SM Muthu.
SM Muthu.
Muthu, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning to all.
Good morning to all.
Hi there,
Hello, Teck.
Muthu.
Yeah, hi there, Teck.
Yeah. So, continue with today's theme, conservation and environment. We have a Sabah activist here, SM Muthu, to share with us on his knowledge and experiences being part of this area of conservation and environment. So we can start with your background as an activist, environmental activist. What have you done prior to this? And
Oh, this is a dangerous question. I'll be blowing trumpets if I were to say what I've done. Anyway, I was a nature lover right from school days, because those days we used to have nature study as a subject, you know.
Oh, do we
so
still have it now?
Long time ago, we didn't have science. In the lower primary, we had nature study. So, you know, that put something into me. From right then, we learned to appreciate nature, you know. I grew up all the way like that. But then when I returned from Brunei, teaching contract, and then came back to Sabah in 88, 89, I saw this thing about a meeting for Environmental Association, AGM or something. So I attended the meeting. Nobody invited me. I just went there, asked them, can I attend? Yes.
How old were you back then, by the way?
Oh, no, I was already quite old. Say about 39. So you see, something in that we never got opportunity, but I used to read about Mr. Gurmeet Singh. I still consider him as the Sifu for environmentalists in Malaysia.
Wow.
Mr. Gurmeet Singh, yes. So he influenced me a lot, not directly, but indirectly from what I read about him. Of course, later I met him. I did work with him. And of course, 89, I got this opportunity. And straight away, they put me as a committee member. I was shocked. But anyway, because since I had a teaching background, they put me as in charge of awareness, you know. Awareness, yeah, subcommittee. I mostly doing awareness, education and awareness.
Wow.
So it was there, okay. But the problem is sometimes you find people are timid.
Timid as in?
And then sometimes when the real problem crops up, they withdraw. They dare not fight, you know. They know it's wrong, but they dare not stand up for it.
I see.
I learned a lot about these kind of issues, yeah.
Teck, is it still ring true? I mean, in today's environmental activism?
Well, fortunately, young people today are becoming more and more brave in standing up and speaking out. I think generally the Asian culture is not to criticize authority, but I think with social media, you see on Twitter and Facebook, people are really not holding back in their criticism.
So at that time, people were still at the stage of being timid when things, you know, become too real.
They don't want to, yes. In fact, especially in Sabah, they don't want to offend people, and especially people in authority. You know, they would rather attend their function and rub shoulders with the people in authority than offend them.
See.
So, but then we learned. Then my founding president was Mr. Henry Chok, and he's retired now. He stood up whenever there was something wrong. He made a statement. For the record, we have made it. We have said it. Nobody can come back and say, "Hey, you people never say anything." No. Whether they will change, whether they would listen to us or not, is another issue. But we say what we feel is right. That's it. We started from there like that. And we even had signature campaigns to stop turning the football field into a seal place, you know, and Sipadan and all that. So from there, people noticed it. That was our first signature campaign activism.
What year was that?
That was somewhere in 95, 96.
I see. A lot of the awareness, environmental awareness, started during that 90s period, I guess.
Yeah. Earlier, actually, I joined because I was one of those who was free. I attended almost all the functions, whether it's gotong royong or this and that. And after that, I got fed up. I told the minister, look, let's stop all this gotong royong. We are not coming here to clean up their dirt, you know. We can come and bring awareness, educate them, bring awareness, and let them take over the thing. But then there was once, somewhere in 1994, after there was a change of government there, local government minister organized a gotong royong in the kampong. We were doing cleaning, and this guy from the house brought some rubbish, and then said, wait, I still got more rubbish. He brought it out. So I told him, this is your kampong, this is your house, you do the cleaning. I gave him the broom and walk off. After that, I don't attend gotong royongs. I told the minister, let's do walk and talk, walk and record. So we walk in an area, we record what's wrong, we tell the respective departments, okay, you rectify all these things, we come back in 3 months, 6 months, and see whether it has been done.
So
we call it environmental walk.
I see. Explain more about the environmental walk, like how much has changed does it really change the government in terms of its approach to its environmental
It all
issues?
depends on the minister in charge. Whether he uses it from his heart, actually wants to see the change, or just for hot air and colorful print in newspapers, we don't know. But it did work for a while. But after a while, we keep pushing the departments responsible to change, and nothing much change. But that kind of thing could change now, because at the moment in our city, Kota Kinabalu, we have a very good Director General. Anything you post to him, immediately he will rectify it. So,
but it's still a set case of it depends on the personality of the officers and the willpower as well.
Yes.
As in, like,
for instance, you bring it out to someone, and someone is under someone, they are reluctant to bring it up to higher authorities. But if they're very committed, they will at least tell them, this is like this,
I see. Going back to KL, do you also, Teck Win, do you also face similar kind of sort of like you need to be close to certain personality in order for you to advance your cause?
Well, it certainly helps. But having said that, Malaysia is a small place, and so it's not normally too difficult to find someone who's got a cable.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Going back to Sabah, so how has Sabah progresses or deprogressed itself in terms of environmental protection and environmental conservation?
Well, I would like to say that we in Sabah, thanks to the former, all those past ministers who were responsible for environment, they came up with a set of laws, all the environmental laws, guidelines and laws, including EIA laws. We are one of the best. We are even better than Semenanjung in terms of laws on paper. I'm talking about paper.
Yeah, one interesting thing in Sabah is that, remember I said earlier, in Selangor, if they want to excise any forest, they must hold a public inquiry. In Sabah, they have to go all the way back to the Dewan, meaning that they have to take a vote in the State Assembly just to excise, say, 1 hectare of forest. They would need to go back.
I see.
So Sabah
that is excising,
Sabah has got very strong forestry laws in that respect.
But why there's a set of strong laws, but you still see the condition, the environmental condition being poorly managed?
Implementation. That's the problem with implementation, monitoring, enforcement of the laws. Sometimes in some places is zero. In some cases they look at who and what. For instance, can I give you an example?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll give you an example where currently there is a big development project going on in the poorest part of Sabah. They call it Pitas area. They are coming out with originally the prawn farm. They wanted 5,800 acres or something like that. They applied the land and survey say we can consider 4,000 acres. They gave them permission to enter and demarc the area. Enter and demarc. I mean, they just do the survey. But they went in and whacked the whole place. Almost 1,000 acres have been felled. Mangrove trees have been felled. And they were digging trenches for the prawn farm and all that. And it was brought up to the EPD, Environment Protection Department in Sabah. They were the only one who acted. They gave a stop work order, but the developer refused to stop.
I see.
Then it came out in the newspapers.
But where exactly is this Pitas area?
Pitas is to the north of Sabah. In the north, you find some donkeys here, a pair of donkeys here. On the left-hand side will be Kudat at the tip, of Borneo, somewhere there. On the right-hand here, somewhere there is Pitas. That's Pitas area. It's a porous part, yes. And they say they want to uplift the social situation of the people there to increase their income. You see, about 9,000 acres of mangrove swamp there had been designated as aquaculture reserve. But number one, that was done in 1983 when the value of mangrove swamps was not there. The people didn't know the value of mangrove swamps. So there was nothing wrong in declaring that as an aquaculture reserve. But now that we are more aware of the importance of mangrove swamp, we should change. We can actually de-gazette from aquaculture to just mangrove reserve. And allow the locals with guidelines to use the mangrove for their own benefit. That will increase their income. At the moment, they are surviving on the fish, the shellfish and all from the rivers. If you have an aquaculture farm there, you will kill. You will not increase their income. You are going to make them the poorest in the world, maybe. If you dirty their rivers, you cut down the mangrove forest there, it's going to happen. But coming back to the laws, you see, they refuse to stop work. Later, they pretend to stop work. Then we get news that they are continuing work. But then the minister was good. He came out and said, EIA first before you continue work.
What is EIA? Can you explain
Environment more? It's called Environment Impact Assessment. We take it as a tool to make sure the development is done properly. But some people may take it as a greenwash to tell the world, hey, we have impact assessment, so everything is done according to this. But sometimes it's just zeal, as I say. Sometimes they do EIA like a closed-door thing. They invite respective government departments. How can a government officer give negative comments about certain things when the chief boss is there, the political boss is up there?
Yeah, one of the main problems with this EIA are they done after the project has already been approved. And so it's very difficult for the Department of the Environment to actually overturn the decision. So their mandate, they see themselves as just trying to mitigate impact, meaning lessen the damage to the environment, even though the project is already assumed it's going to go ahead.
Was EIA used for the KL Outer Ring Road?
Yes, they have done an EIA, but again, it's just kind of a document, and it in a way, as Muthu said, is kind of being used to legitimize something which is. I mean, it's common sense. You cannot build a highway through a state park, forest state park.
Yeah, Muthu, you want to add on?
Yeah, you need public input, you see, and the public input should be public with knowledge of what is happening. Not just you go like there was another project, Likas Bay. They go to a group of fishermen. Hey, we're going to seal up this bay, reclaim it, and turn it into a city center. You people can find job there easily. You want it or not? Of course, they'll say yes. So it depends what kind of information you give and all that. Now Likas Bay has been turned into a beautiful garden, the coastal area, garden and cycling track and all that. But people they have forgotten that at one time it was going to be the whole bay, the most beautiful bay in Sabah was going to be covered up,
I see.
Reclaimed and turned into a city center.
I mean, the Likas Bay example is very interesting. I was working in Sabah at the time, and it was one of the few cases where you have an example of an environmental impact assessment, which was not approved by the government. The government said, all right, this impact is going to be too great, so we will not allow the project to go ahead. But I'm sure Mr. Muthu would be able to confirm this, that it was not so much because of the technical reasons, but because the politicians realized it was unpopular.
Yeah. You see, I started that one, 96, I started voicing my objection. I wrote to certain people in the government. I didn't know them, and nobody responded. But one person When he came back to Sabah politics, he became chief minister. He called me and asked me, what is the problem? Why? And I gave him my reason. So when he had the power, he cancelled the project.
Oh, that's a very...
Now it's there for everyone to enjoy Likaspe, but they have forgotten why it is still there. Otherwise, why it would have lost and all that. But because you see, here, the loss, they just take people as subservient, you know.
Yeah, I can
They don't voice out.
I can see like the common thread is a lot of the land development, especially in Sabah. In this case, is a lot. They don't really do real public consultation, and they don't give due consideration in terms of how it will impact the environment itself.
Yes, exactly. You're right. And public consultation should be open to all. You must invite social organizations and environmental organizations so they can put the other side of the input, because they will give you one side of the input. Like I said, hey, you will get a higher paid job here, you want or not, you know, something like that. Same thing like with Pitas. They go to certain kampong and say, hey, you all can find job, you can get 1,000, 2,000 salary. Then what will happen? They will say yes.
I see. So they sort of exploit the ignorance of the society there.
Oh, you got the right word. Ignorance.
Yeah. Is there a way out?
As I just want to point out, as Lynn pointed out earlier, nowadays they are more aware. People are more aware, especially the urban ones. Even the rural ones, the young ones are more aware. But not many would come out to stand. They talk in their coffee shops and pubs and Facebook, they sound as hollow warriors.
Yeah,
but
they call it the armchair. The keyboard armchair.
Keyboard
warrior.
I call them hollow warriors. They talk so much about this and that. I say, come, step forward, come and join us. Let's form a group. Let us start some, gentle, let's tell them that we don't want this, we want in a different way. We are their masters. They are not our masters. The politicians, they take it as if they are appointed by God. Whatever they do is right. We cannot say anything, you know.
Yeah.
But I told them I've lived my life, I've settled everything. Now it's my turn is to make sure the future is safe for our grandchildren.
So, talking about the motive of why the government is so fixed into the idea of growth and development, especially in the area of Sabah, here, what is the real motivation? Is it because of foreign direct investment?
Foreign direct investment. That's why the EIA, one thing about EIA in Sabah, different from West Malaysia, is in Sabah, the number one criteria, number one point in any project is that, is there an alternative? Because it's a sensitive area, the first question is there an alternative? If there is an alternative place where it is less sensitive, then you must go away. You cannot use this place. So that's a beautiful thing about Sabah EIA laws, or whether it's being implemented. Like Lim said, it's already approved. Then they do the EIA, so it become a greenwash. What they should do is bring public consultation even before approving, in principle, the project.
I see.
And in Western countries, EIA, they have EIAs, but any time along the way, even if you have done the construction, then you find there is something wrong, you have to stop your project. You take the losses. Here, the politicians are so smart. They say, hey, look, they put in their money. You want them to lose money. We cannot stop it. There's no excuse. You, as a politician elected by the people to take care of the land, must take care of the land. That comes first, not your money or your kickbacks that you are going to receive. I don't think any of these guys will stand up for this any of the projects without getting some fringe benefits.
What about the community?
So talking about what you asked me earlier about the EIA, no.
Yeah, I was asking about what about the community?
Foreign direct investment.
The foreign direct investment.
Yes,
Has it really?
It's a beautiful word, foreign direct investment. To me, development is the dirtiest word. To some people, it's a magical word because they can make money. Because all they think of is money, money. I think of the environment first. If you open up Sabah to foreign development investment without any control, Sabah will be the number one FDI recipient in the whole world. All the aluminium plants can come in, all the smelters can come in, Linus, the rare earth plants can come in. You don't control. They can dump all the pollutants into the sea surrounding, and all our fish and prawns will become fattened by all the pollution. And we can eat them, and we become polluted. That kind of thing. FDI also must follow all these environmental laws strictly. I'll give you one example. The same thing that happened, like Likaspe, with the same good politician heading the government at that time in 2001 to 3. The China paper plant. China wanted to put a paper plant. They went to Thailand. Thailand said no. They came to Malaysia. Our PM at that time pointed to Sarawak. Sarawak said no. They came to Sabah. Sabah, in fact, I heard that both the Forestry Department and EPU did a study and said not viable because we already have a paper plant. But then somebody at that time took a map and just drew a spot there. Oh, we can have it. This is it. We can have the paper plantation for the paper mill here, Kalabakan.
Oh, just like that?
Just like that. Of course, they would have asked some questions, some feedback, and then they said, we can do it, even though the departments in charge were not in favor. They said, can do it. So it was going on. But that time there was a change in the leadership. Then I put in, because it's not just matter of paper mill, the social thing, the pollution, all these things. I did a paper. I sent to the chief CEO at that time in charge, and all they did was, because they did not object because it was a project given by PM, but then they stated they have to follow. China has to follow all the environmental requirements.
Yeah, I have to be
they couldn't.
I have to be a devil's advocate here. Talking about foreign direct investment, Sabah being the poorest state in Malaysia, has it really benefit the community economically?
It depends. I think most of the development benefits the developers and the henchmen around them. I don't think Sabah benefits directly from any of these FDIs. They're huge thing. I'm afraid that some of these huge thing may destroy the environment. Because Sabah is off the shipping lane. You have to see, why would somebody come to Sabah, and the local market is very small. Buying power is very small. Why should they come here? Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. So when they talk about $1 billion FDI, I'm very curious. Why can't they have dialogue with the people involved? I mean, the public, the citizens, before they even consider approving in principle.
So it seems like Sabah is a commodity for the state government, I guess.
Exactly. Look at that. We have become the biggest oil palm state. When we don't even... One of the things I objected to the paper mill was, employees, workforce. We don't have the workforce. All our workforce are imported. Just now you mentioned about poverty. Much of Sabah's poverty is imported poverty.
I see.
The local people were never poor. When I came to Sabah in 1969, Sabah was one of the most beautiful places in the world. I call it Shangri-La. I was just like Julius Caesar, except I didn't agree with the last part. I came, I saw, I surrendered. I surrendered to the beauty of Sabah. But everything is gone. Now we are sinking under oil palm.
Do you know
nothing wrong?
Do you know when it started, the encroachment of environment in Sabah? When it started to be too noticeable?
Too noticeable. Of course, there was a little bit of a lot of development during the Berjaya era, but at that time we were not environmentally conscious, So, but then during the later during the 1990s, we are aware of the environment. But then at that time they had already started approving large plantations, oil mills. As I said, as I was going to say, oil mill, oil palm. There's nothing wrong with it if all the laws are followed strictly. For example, in Sandakan area, Kinabalu River, that supplies water to the town, is filled with oil mills along the river bank.
I see.
And if you are free, you come to Sabah, you take a tour, Kinabatangan tour, you can see the oil along the bank. The minister has seen it. Minister has given the order, but somehow, these guys can go around it.
Yeah, can you explain more what are oil mills for us in Peninsula?
The oil mills are palm oil mills. They process the palm oil fruit into palm oil.
I want to put a key focus on palm oil plantation right now. How severe or how vast is it, the palm oil plantation in Sabah?
I don't have the exact figure, but what I know is Sabah is the largest state with oil palm plantation. It's the state with the largest oil palm plantations, area-wise.
Muthu, wouldn't you say it's, being a Malaysian, isn't it unpatriotic of you to even think of criticizing palm oil?
No, that's what I said. That's why I corrected myself. I don't blame palm oil, but the way it is done. You see the using of fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, and running down to the river, and then especially the oil mills. The oil mills should be controlled. We have the laws. The laws are all there, but whether they are being enforced, that's all. There's nothing wrong with palm oil because everybody takes it as a cash crop. If you don't do it properly, it will become a curse crop.
But in return, they have to clear off huge areas of forests to bring in the plantation.
Yes, that's another thing. That again, the government must decide. Otherwise, international organizations, they give you they boycott your oil and all that. There is a reason because you're simply clearing forests. But at the moment, we have a so-called good forest policies, and I hope they stick to it. They don't allow even government GLCs to open up any plantations. In fact, GLCs should avoid oil palm plantations so that, Yayasan Sabah, I heard thousands of acres, hundreds of thousands of acres are turning into oil palm, even in FMU areas. I don't know whether this is true.
Yes, I mean this is interesting because FMU stands for Forest Management Unit, and I was talking earlier about how wonderful the laws are in Sabah in terms of forestry, but the fact is that even though an area is still designated as a forest reserve, in Sabah they've given permission for companies to set up oil palm plantations inside a forest reserve.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is legal? Is that what you mean?
It seems
when you say permission.
Yes, it seems that what they're saying is that they are allowing the company to set up these plantations in part of the forest management unit, with the understanding that they will use the money that they generate from these plantations to manage the rest of the forest well, and that at the end of one rotation, I mean when the palms are old already, they will be replanted with timber trees. But whether this will happen or not remains to be seen. And in the meantime, you have set a precedent to allow natural forests to be cut down and replaced with the plantation.
I see. Do you know how vast is it, the plantation?
Yes, some of these areas are more than 100,000 hectares. This is an area almost the size of Singapore.
Really?
Yeah.
Almost the size of Singapore for plantation.
For oil palm plantations.
Oh, oil palm plantation.
Yeah,
this is shocking.
Size. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the old days, Felda was given an area the size of Singapore or even bigger. The whole thing is oil palm under one, Felda.
So
it was originally given out to be divided into 15-acre lots for Sabahans. But somehow along the way, that part was forgotten.
I see. I'm just wondering, where do we put sort of like a line between the necessary part of development and preservation or conservation of the environment? Where should we put the line, especially in relation to cash crops like palm oil plantations?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's why we have called for the government to put a moratorium and come up with a guideline. To me, I would say no more plantation in Sabah, no more opening of new plantations. A small holding is a different issue, but control the oil palm, whatever is existing in terms of using chemical fertilizers, and the oil mills, especially the oil mills. Shut them down, those who don't follow the rules. You must do it. You just don't talk because they don't really take action, and because they somehow can oil themselves away out of problem, they keep on doing it. There's no necessity to follow the law strictly because you can always get out. If the authorities really close the mill and put guards there, to make sure it's not being run, then that's it.
Yeah, Teck.
Others will
follow. Teck Green, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would say that what Muthu said is correct. We need to make a distinction between small holdings that are run by local communities and these huge plantations which are run by big companies that come from outside. And what has happened in the past is that a huge amount of wealth from land and timber in Sabah has been taken out of the state, gone into the pockets of minorities, of one or two individuals, politicians often, and the local communities are suffering the highest incidence of poverty in the whole of Malaysia. So, to get back to your point about drawing a line between economics and environment, I would say that you shouldn't draw a line, because ultimately they should all be considered together. And I am strongly of the opinion that if local communities are given the control of their land, they will make the right decisions.
Mm-hmm. Do you have example of countries where they have successfully integrated development with environmental protection?
You don't need to go anywhere. If you look in certain part of Sabah, maybe Muthu has been there himself. It's a small little village called Bundu Tuhan, which is right on the side of Mount Kinabalu. And the state government there has recognized the rights of the community to manage their forest. It's given them a native reserve. And what the community have done, they have zoned the land into a totally protected area, which is forested, the catchment for the stream, areas for hunting, areas for handicrafts, areas for agriculture, areas for housing. And this has been managed like that for more than 30 years now.
Do you want to add on something, Muthu?
Yeah, just because earlier mentioned about poverty. You see, this thing is very good, where the local communities given the authority to look after the forests around them. See, earlier I mentioned about created poverty. They, for reasons only known to themselves, they keep a close eye, or in fact welcome foreigners, certain kinds of foreigners, to come into Sabah and settle down. And many of them have big families and they're poor. Because I'm involved somehow in certain charity work, so I know. Some of them just walk in. This thing happened. That's imported poverty. Sorry, that's imported poverty. Then there's another thing, created poverty, where the government, the lack of action by the government to control opening up agriculture areas and logging, areas that the natives used to use for their own, as a fruit basket, as a food basket, and as a pharmacy, is all being destroyed. So the villagers, the natives, the real natives, orang asal of Sabah, are becoming poor because of lack of government action to protect them and their lands.
I see.
That is created poverty. Sabahans were never poor. Now they are poor. Sabah is still the richest state. I challenge anyone. Sabah is still the richest state, except the value of the state is now in private hands. The people are poor. The politicians are rich.
I see. I want to put a spotlight on our local companies, especially on our GLC that manage these oil palm plantations. What is your view? Are they responsible in terms of the way they handle this?
To be fair, I did an actual survey in 96, 97. It's a long time ago. That time oil palm was not that much. But still, we went around the state looking at all the oil mills. The old companies, the British companies and all, they were very good in making sure they follow the environmental laws. And even Felda at that time, we found they strictly followed. They had the discharge ponds, and they call it, I've forgotten the word, where they have to go through 6 or 7 ponds before they discharge the water, affluent ponds, before they discharge the water. At the oxygen content has to be made sure it is right before they discharge into the river. So it was good. They followed. But the small companies here and there, the mills, they don't bother. When we go to visit them, the first thing is they bring us to makan, try to offer us gifts. We say, no, we want to go and see the factory. They say, no, later, we have makan first, this and that, But some, they follow. That's why we have departments in the government. They should be strict. And you should also observe that the enforcers should also keep an eye on. At that time, I overheard one person say, hey, send me the sample. So instead of him going to the place to collect the sample himself, they asked the mill operator to send the sample, he can take the sample from any part of the river, isn't it? It should be at the discharge point.
I see. I want to put a spotlight on a particular GLC, which is Sime Darby, because it's stated that plantation are Sime Darby's largest revenue generator. And possibly Sabah Sarawak is the location for Sime Darby's palm oil plantation. So my question is, in terms of your environmental activism, do you also engage with GLC, especially GLC like Sime Darby, in terms of their code of conduct towards not just the land itself, and also towards the environment?
I think Teck can talk on that.
Can you?
To be honest, I haven't really studied Sime Darby in much detail, but I know that they are expanding around the world. They have they've got some operations in Liberia and Africa, and even in South America, they're considering expansion. One thing about the big players such as Sime Darby is that they are, most of them, including Sime Darby, are members of what's known as the Round Table for Sustainable Palm Oil, or RSPO. And this is similar to what we were talking about in the previous segment about timber certification.
Okay.
They are having some kind of eco-label to certify palm oil that is from a sustainable source. And so this scheme, RSPO, is supported by most of the major environmental groups, such as WWF and Greenpeace. And it is interesting because you have, on one hand, the big companies such as Sime Darby who are supporting RSPO, who are members of RSPO, who are committed to the RSPO principles. But on the other hand, you have groups such as the Malaysian Palm Oil Promotion Council, MPOC, that has been criticizing RSPO as being overly dominated by Western interests that are out to perhaps neocolonialism, dominating Malaysia, forcing Malaysia to subscribe to Western principles. But what remains is that, as I mentioned, big players such as Sime Darby have signed up to RSPO and do see the benefits of having a scheme, third-party scheme, checking to make sure that what they're doing is in line with the correct principles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a silver lining. I support that RSPO. It's a silver lining. Hopefully they can do something and improve on it and make it better. And coming back to Sabah, the biggest, what they call GLC here would be Felda.
Oh, Felda.
It's taken such a big chunk of Sabah. And what do Sabahans get from it?
I see.
So the workers are foreign elements.
Can I ask more about what is Felda business in Sabah?
No, that's why they've taken a large chunk of the land and turned into oil palm plantation.
Just oil palm, or they have other crops?
Just oil palm.
I see.
In that area, it's just oil palm, nothing else. And they're huge. They're making hundreds of millions, maybe billions from that area. And what do Sabahans get? And this is something where Sabahans are not happy. Because, in fact, that land should be returned to Sabah. And maybe Sabahans can enjoy it. And they're using that for other places, other things. That's why the unhappiness of Sabahans. For me, I agree. First thing they should start with is Felda. Return it to Sabahans and let it be used for Sabahans' welfare work.
I see. So there needs to be some sort of check and balance with our GLC here. Yeah, especially on Felda and Sime Darby and all that. So we are almost at the end of our segment here. We have another 2 minutes to wrap up. I want to ask both you and Teck your final message. Maybe SM Muthu can start?
Yeah, for me, I would like to request the government plan with the people, plan with people as their number one item, not profit, and please include all people involved, like the local community, NGOs, knowledgeable NGOs. Don't just put government departments there who will always say yes to anything. Involve all people who have a vested interest in the project. Then things are safe. And don't approve in principle before the whole thing is seen and understood by the local community.
Yeah, well, I would agree with all of that. The general message that I would like to put forward is that in order to improve management of environment or any kind of resources, you put the control, decentralize the control, give more control to the states, give more control to local communities, away from the center, away from Kuala Lumpur, in our case in Malaysia.
So
keep politics out of all debates.
Keep politics, that's the main point. But I think the idea of inclusive development, inclusive consultation, rather than just top-down decision making, that would be the key output in terms of ensuring sustainability in Malaysia as well as in the region of Southeast Asia. So that's all for our dialogue today, and thank you both our guest hosts. Both our guests today.
Thank you too. You've been a great host. I've learned something from you today.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Muthu. Always good speaking with you.
Meet up with you soon.
See you soon.
And I think this is an eye-opener for me in terms of conservation of the environment, and we will definitely have more topics related to sustainability and environment conservation. You are listening to Durian ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you.